everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 548. Today we're going to take a look at Great Western Trail. This is a new game from Stronghold Games, and this is a Euro game set in sort of a more realistic type of cowboy setting. You won't be having any gunfights or anything like that. You're going to be trying to herd cattle through this trail and also interacting with Native Americans, going through kind of tricky terrain, laying down different buildings, buying and selling cattle, all the way till you arrive at Kansas City, where you're going to kind of dump your hand of cards and hopefully make a big sale and then kind of reset that journey. And that journey is going to take place multiple times over the course of the game. So let's jump in and take a look at it, and then I'll tell you what I think of it. Okay, so here's just about everything that you're going to get in the game. And as I said, you're going to be moving your little cowboy meeple type of figure here, and let's just show them to you. You're going to be moving this guy here through this trail and hitting different locations and possibly taking actions on different locations and buying and selling cattle and so on. All the way, once you get up to here to Kansas City, well then you'll make kind of a final sale, a big sale, and then start to put some discs out and move your locomotive along this track here like that. Now each player is also going to have their own player board, and these are identical. And you can see a couple of things here. You've got 3 tracks for 3 different types of workers. You've got cowboys, kind of generic workers, and there's engineer types here. You'll be getting workers and then placing them on here. This will kind of help you to do things better on the main board, as well as possible trigger effects. And then you get points here for having filled up these rows, kind of similar to Eclipse if you've played that. And then certain actions are going to allow you to remove these discs off the game. I'll talk about that in a minute, but this is going to kind of enhance some of your generic actions here, as well as enhance, for example, the movement. So typically, and this is in a 2-player game, you can move 3 spaces. If you remove that, you can move 4 spaces and so on. Now, depending on player count, you might put this little overlay here to change that up just a little bit. But this is kind of your generic board here. Now, everybody's going to get a stack of identical building tiles, which they can build out on the board. And you can see these have a B and an A side, like that. So the typical, you want to play everybody with the A side, and I would certainly recommend that. Those are just a little bit more straightforward, and there's enough going on in the game anyway, you don't really need to mess with the B side, definitely for your first game. So you can be building these out. These are identical for every player, and then each player is going to get an identical sort of deck of these different cattle cards. So you've got Guernsey cows, Black Angus, Jersey cows, Dutch belt, so on. So you're going to shuffle these up to start the game, and then you're going to draw 4 of these, and these are going to be cards that you can sort of spend or discard throughout the course of your journey. And every turn you're going to move your guy and take an action and possibly spend more cards. Let's say discard of these 2 evil Jersey cows. I'll explain why they're evil in a minute. And then at the end of your turn, you draw back up to 4 cards. Now there is a spot over here where you can actually increase your hand limit to 5 and 6 cards. This you won't be able to do for a little while in the game, but that's also very useful to build these up. And as I said, you're trying to make it all the way to Kansas City and sell your hand of cards. Well, as I said, you start with a hand of 4, and you want to have all different colored cards. So let's say I arrived at Kansas City with this particular hand. So I've got $2, $4, $6, $7 or $7 worth that I can sell. Now if I had, let's say instead of this Black Angus, I had these 2 Jersey cows, then I'm not going to count any duplicates of the Jersey cows. So in this case, I've only got $5, 2, 4, 5. Anything that you have a duplicate of, you throw out basically. You discard your whole hand no matter what, and then draw back up to 4. But when you get to Kansas City, you want to have a hand of different cards, as well as higher value cards. You can get access to these purple 5s and so on later. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But as you go through the board, you want to try to discard some of these sort of crappy cards out of your hand, and then have a more diverse hand once you get to the end. So your turn is going to be very simple. So let's say with a red player here, and again we have a movement of 3, so we can hit 3 sort of pieces of cardboard. So if I went here, bam, that's 1 move. If I could go 1, 2, and skip all the way down to here, and then if there was more buildings in the way, then I could, it will cost sort of more movement to move through. So if I had built like these 2 buildings here, I could go 1, 2, 3, but I couldn't make it all the way to here because, I've used up my movement. You can also land on these sort of little hazard spaces like this, and then anything you see with a hand on it, either a green hand or a black hand, is going to cost you a certain amount to move through. And you can even build buildings in the way of other players. And so if other players have to move through my building here, instead of paying the bank like they would if they landed on these different hazards or these Native American spaces, then this money would be paid to me. And this is going to depend again on the player count. You can see this tells you the cost for green spaces and black spaces. It's going to cost $2 in a 2-player game. In a 3-player game, the green is 2 and the black is 1. So that's going to change up a little bit. Once you get to a spot though, you can do the actions depicted. So in this case, we could discard here the Guernsey cow, and it shows you kind of the color of the cow there. And so we could discard one of those and we would get $2. And then we could hire a worker for $0 and then hire another worker for an extra $2. So minus in this case is bad. So that's going to cost us $2 extra. So the worker pool is up here, and I'll explain how this gets filled up as we go, but this also acts as a trigger for the game. Now you can buy any workers up here for the cost depicted there. So these would each cost 6, and then again if we wanted to buy a second worker on that action, it would cost another 2. So 6 plus 8, you could get $14 and get the 2 workers here. Now it's worth noting that you cannot hire any workers from the spot where this marker is. As workers fill up, you're going to start filling these up left to right, and then I took one off of here, but you can start to move this down, and as these fill up, then this is going to go all the way to the end, and once that triggers off, then that's the end of the game, and then there'll be some extra turns played after that. But you can see here the cost of the workers is going to sort of fluctuate throughout the round. Now the next sort of generic action space is going to be this one. You can discard a green level 2 cow for $2, and then you can build one of your buildings. Now you can see here this is going to indicate the number of workers that you can use. So let's look at that. Let's say we hired one of these kind of generic workers like that. So you can see we've each got a built-in one of each of the different types of workers, but let's say we had hired this guy in a previous turn, and that shows sort of the level of building that we can build. So now we could, if we wanted to, build this building so we can use 2 workers, and then where some of these maybe you need 5 workers and so on. Now these are going to show you the victory points you get at the end of the game. This is going to show you, the cost for other players to move through there. This is going to show you the action, and then this action is only going to be available to you. If other players land on here, they can do one of their generic actions, which are all depicted on the side of the board, but that's all that they can do, and so they don't want to do that. So you can build that out on the board, and again here this is showing a cost of -2 sort of per worker. So this is going to cost you $2 per level of building to put it out, and you can put it anywhere out here on any of these open spaces. Now if we take a look here, you can see there's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of spaces. You might build stuff in the way here early, so they have to go through that. You might try to build them down here, and if I put that building down here, then this sort of unlocks a special extra action when I go here to take this action. So in this case I could discard a Jersey cow, and then I could move my certificate token, which I'll mention here in a minute, and I get an extra $2. But the reason these special spaces, more powerful spaces, are here is because they're going to be behind these hazard areas. And so these are typically going to have many more sort of spaces. They're going to eat up a lot of your movement count, and all of these are going to have different sort of hazards that you have to pay, because remember, every time you go through these hands, you've got to pay money to the bank. So there are ways to actually clear these though, and maybe leave access to these spots as well. But you'll see on the board here there are some different spots here. So if you go up through these hazards up here, so kind of through that canyon, then you have these other cooler spots where you can build. So it's kind of a risk to build there. It's going to be possibly more expensive for you to actually get to there and get to those cooler spots. Let's just take a look at the rest of these generic spaces, give you a good idea what's going on here. This allows you again to move that certificate token down, or in this case, you can actually draw a special objective card. Now, players will shuffle up these 4 sort of basic special objectives, and then each player will get a random one, and then there'll be off to the side 4 of these that you can choose from. And these are special bonuses that you can get into your deck, actually. So these will start up face up, and you don't get a penalty if you don't complete this. For example, this one shows you have 2 of your buildings out, and then you have a hazard tile that you've actually removed from the board. So like I said, you can remove these and keep these, and this will give you 4 points, but also go possibly to completing some of your objectives. Now as you get other of these objective cards, let's grab some examples here. Maybe these are ones that you selected during the game. You'll see there's a negative cost there next to the point. So when you select these go into your deck's discard pile with all of your other cattle and things like that, so they get shuffled right in. Now they're kind of a dead card in your deck as you have them, but then on your turn you can play them, put them face up, and then you've committed to doing them. So while they're in your deck, they're just kind of a wasted card. Once you play them though, you've committed to trying to do them, and you will get negative points if you don't complete them. And these are different things like this. So these are stations. I'll explain what stations are in a minute. And these blue teepees here are like trading with the Indians. When you trade with the Indians, you'll get a one of these tokens here, and so on. So there's different things. So this one, maybe you have 2 level 4 cows, and then a green TP and a station, and so on like that. So these are the bonus cards that you could get here from this space. After you do either of those 2 actions, then you're going to move your locomotive for each of these engineers that you have on your player board. Now, I will explain these in more detail when we talk about scoring Kansas City, but it does behoove you to move these up. So let's say I had 2 of those engineers, I could go 1, 2, and you can see these sort of signpost types of things there that count as spaces. And then you see these sort of red X's, you want to kind of get them through that. But one thing you can do is as you move through these, you can actually stop at these little station locations here, and then you can put out your disc. So you can put that out, there's a cost, and there's a victory points that will be worth at the end of the game. So if I was yellow, I'll put a disc out. This is one of the ways that you get the discs off your board to, again, unlock the different action spaces. You can see that there. But you also get this, and then you will be able to take here this token like that, and then it will give you a special ability. So I can remove a hazard from the board, and I can remove one of the TPs from the board. And then this at the end of the game, for every pair of objective cards, whether they're completed or not in this case, you get 3 points. So it's kind of an in-game bonus type of thing there. So that's something you can do. It slows you down just slightly to do that. But the one thing you have to do when you take this is put one of your workers from your player board on that spot. So you've got to give up a worker to sort of act as a station manager to do that. So that's very important as well. But there's more to moving the train, but I'll leave that for a minute. Now here we can see this allows you to remove one of these TP markers there. And these again will possibly add to objectives, and they're also going to clear off the space down here, so other players can move through there and so on. Now when you do that, you're going to get the amount of money that you do that. So it usually behooves you to take the highest one. So you take this one and give you $4, but maybe you really wanted a green one or something. And if there are there should be some here actually, but if there are none out here, then these spots here you can take, but this is actually a trade not in your favor, and you'll lose money. Now the other thing you can do here is you can do a double generic action. So let's talk about your generic actions now. Now, anytime you land on somebody else's building or on one of the hazard spaces, you can take a generic action. So typically you could take a money or draw a card and discard a card to kind of cycle through your deck there. Get rid of those evil Jersey cows. But as you start to unlock actions, you can start to do more stuff. And then once you unlock the second row, anywhere that it says you can do a double action, then you can do a double action. You can only do it on those spots. So here I can take 2 money, or draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. This one allows you to pay $1, move your train actually backwards 1 space, and then move this certificate token down. And I'll explain what this is used for, but you've seen that a few times now. The other thing you can do here is you can pay $1 and move your train forward 1 space. Or you can back up your train 1 space, and then from your hand you can remove, usually, a Jersey cow from your hand, because you have a bunch of these. And you don't want these. These are horrible. Some spaces on the board allow you to interact with them and discard them and stuff, but whatever. You want to get those out of your hand. So those are kind of your generic actions that you can do there. The last generic space I want to look at, the others are sort of repeats of what we've seen, but this one you can discard a black cow there for $2, and then you can go cattle buying. Now when you buy cattle, you're going to look at the number of cowboys that you have here. Now again, everybody starts with 1, and you're going to have this market which is randomly seeded and depending on the number of players, and you can go and buy the different levels of cows. So you've got a bunch of different level 3 types. You've got your level 4 brown cow, and then your purple Texas Longhorns. Now you can see the cost here. So you can see here if I have 1 cowboy, I'm counting the workers on my board, I can buy any of these 3s for $6. If I have 2 cowboys, I can buy a 3 for $3. So it's much better. You get a little bit better of a deal with more cowboy workers. If I have 3 cowboys, I can get 2 3s for $5. Now one thing you can do, and it goes up here, so if you have 2 cowboys up here, you can get the level 5 here for $12, and so on. Now one thing you can do is if you have a cowboy, you can sort of use one of those cowboys, and that will allow you to draw 2 more cards and add them to the market. So let's say I had 3 cowboys. I sort of quote unquote spend one, I add these out to the board here, and then now I've got 2 more left over, so maybe I go ahead and buy these 2 3s because I really wanted red or something like that. So that's what happens when you go and deal with the cattle market. Now once you move up from here to, or wherever to, now once you move up from somewhere on the board to Kansas City, you're going to trigger kind of a 5-step thing. What you're going to do is actually put out these different tokens. You can see these all have different backs with 1 and then 2 and so on. And then you're going to choose one of them and you're going to do something with it. So maybe we put the blue teepee out here onto the board. And then the next time we'll go here and we're going to put maybe the new cowboy worker out onto the board. So we're going to scroll down here a little bit. Again, I took one of these off. There's one. So you're going to put it in the next available spot. So the first thing we're going to do is move that down, and then we're going to put that there. Now we've unlocked this row. That row's available for purchase. And then the next worker that comes out here is going to be placed here. But these won't be available until that shoves it down. The other thing to note here is as we move these down, you're going to replenish that cattle market. So as cattle gets bought up, it's going to be less and less to choose from. Once this moves down, you're going to replenish to a certain number based on the player count and so on. So as that moves down, again, as I said, that's going to trigger the end of the game. So we'll move along to the next one. We'll put this worker out maybe, and then we're going to go up here. We're going to sell our hand like we said. So let's just grab some random cards here just to show you another example. And let's say, hey, this was my hand of 4 cards. This is not a bad hand, but this extra brown's not going to do us any good, right? So we only have 3, 6, 10 bucks. So we're going to sell that for. And we're going to sell that, but you can spend your certificates. So if you remember over here, during the course of your trails, you might have bumped this up. Now you don't have to spend these, but you can, or you could maybe just spend one of them. But adding these, let's say I spent all 2 of them, to that $10 I spent, that would be kind of a $12 sale. So that would kind of beef up your sale. And so you're going to get money when you do that. And you can see that's here. This is the spot that indicates your sale. And then when you go to the next space here, this all happens in one turn, just so we're clear. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in your turn. You're going to then put out a disc up here into one of these different towns. Now, based on the level and sort of the value of your sale, remember we had a 12. So we're good in Topeka. That's a 1. Wichita's a 4. Colorado Springs is 6, 8. Albuquerque's 10, 12. We could put a disc out all the way up to El Paso. However, we were red. So that's going to cost us more. So let's say our train was here and we really wanted to put one out in El Paso. That's going to cost us 1, 2, 3, 4 bucks based on each of these different sort of red crossings there. That's okay because we just got paid 12, so we could immediately spend 4 of that and then put out one of our discs out here into El Paso. Now you'll notice here some of these spaces are white and some of these spaces are kind of like a checkered black. And you also notice down here these station spaces are also white. And then as you move down the board here, some of these have that kind of checkered look there. Now on your player board, you've got white spaces, which we've uncovered here. Then you have these black ones here. So these are a little bit harder. You've got to make a better sale to get access to these cooler spaces that increase your movement or increase your hand size or allow you eventually down here to this last one to have a higher level of certificate value. So you take one of these tokens, let's just take this one, and you'll put it out here. Again, in this particular example up here at El Paso. Now, you're going to unlock these different bonuses. So we can see here, El Paso is next to Albuquerque. If I have a disc in both of these spots, I'm going to get 6 points. Whereas if I have a disc up here, because I have a disc in both these spots, I'll get 8. Now, multiple players can put discs out in the same spot. You can only ever have 1 disc in a spot, except for San Francisco. And if we look over here, you can see you get 9 points for each disc in there. So you need to have a sale of 18, but it's possible to get multiple of those during the game. So each of those discs will be 9. There's no more cities after that. You can see the stations keep going. You can keep your track going all the way down here. The other spot you can do multiple in is, sorry for the zooming, is Kansas City. Now if you put a disc here, you're actually going to lose 6 points at the end of the game, but it's going to give you $6. So it might be worth it to go there to get a little bit of money because money can be tight at the beginning of the game. And then also being on both sides of Topeka and Wichita, won't necessarily be a good thing. Now you get -3 points, but you do get to draw a bonus card, so that might be worth it as well. So that's kind of how these trains work. So you kind of want to move the trains up to get early access to these stations, but again, you also want to not have to pay as much when you start to put your discs out in the cities like that. Pretty much the game. You move your guy, you take the action of the space, or maybe do a generic action. You kind of discard and trade and sell cattle as you move along, build your buildings, and then go up here and hopefully have, by the time you work through all this stuff, a really good hand that you can sell and kind of make a delivery to these different cities. Now the game comes with a score pad, and you can see there's a bunch of stuff that you score at the end of the game. So there's a few different things. Some of these cattle that you buy, well, all the cattle that you buy actually have points on them. The buildings that you put out here will have a certain number of points. I didn't say that you could actually upgrade buildings. So if I build this one, I need 1 worker, but to upgrade this, I would just need 2 because you need the difference in workers. So I would take this off the board, and then now I've kind of upgraded that to more points and probably a cooler special ability. You get points for all the stations and cities and things that you put discs out into. Again, you collect points for removing hazards. You get points for completing bonuses, or you lose points for not completing bonuses that you played out. You do get an opportunity at the end of the game for any that are in your deck to play them out if you wish. Maybe you're holding on to it, waiting to be able to complete it, like you needed that second blue teepee or something. You get kind of a last minute ability to play it. And also, I should say, when you play it, you get a cool ability too. So like this one will allow me to draw and then discard 3 cards or get $2. I forgot to mention that. You get again the bonus points here for these station objectives that you might have collected. The player that triggered the end of the game, since they don't get an extra turn, then they get this marker here for 2 points. And there's also some points for unlocking certain spaces or building workers on your player board that you'll add as well. And I think that's it. So that is Great Western Trail, and I think this is my Essen game of the year. I've mentioned some other games as potentials for game of the year as the year's gone by, but this is certainly right now the top game that I've played out of this Essen crop. Why? So it works very thematically. You have this kind of cattle that you're trying to rustle and herd through this trail, and you're kind of making deals as you go. You're trying to sort of like plot out your own kind of sort of company and special buildings that you're going to make use of, through the course of the trail. So the next time on the trip, you're going to have access to cooler special abilities, and all that kind of wraps around this deck building aspect, where you kind of, selling cards, dumping cards. Oh, I've got 2 black cards. I can move this spot. I can dump this, get some money, buy another cattle that's going to go in my discard pile. And then at the end of every turn, you're going to draw back up to 4 or 5 or 6 cards. And, trying to siphon through your deck and kind of build that perfect hand, if you can, by the time you get to Kansas City, and then make your big sell. And that's where a lot of your points are going to come from, is selling off to those extra cities and trying to get into San Francisco, and maybe complete some objective cards that kind of go along with all of that. And you're also clearing hazards. You're making sort of trades with the Native Americans, and you're getting bonus points possibly for that. And I like how the whole sort of visual and sort of physical shaping of the board is in the trails. So you have hazards that'll come in the way. So that'll block off this cool building with this cool action space with the extra bonuses that you built. So you want to, if you want to put hazards in that person's way, or, take them away if they're in your way and stuff. So you might have a little bit of, hey, we both are working on this trail, so we'll both try to pull stuff off. And then you'll put sort of spaces that block, in a way, other players. So again, remember, if they have this little hand on there, you're going to charge them like a toll for going through there. So that's an interesting aspect of the game. So you can put those right at the beginning, or right, before or after these really cool spots that players are going to have to go to a lot, or they're going to want to go to. So the way that all kind of shapes out on the board is really interesting. But then you have this deck building mechanic, which is really interesting. And then you have this player board where you're pulling off discs and sort of unlocking special powers. So you might try to unlock the abilities that move your train a bunch, or the one that lets you trash your cards, which you should always do, because you really want to trash those jersey cards, because they're going to draw up 4 jersey cards sometimes, and you're going to be like, I have 4 ones. This is horrible. I don't want to do this close to Kansas City, or else how am I going to get rid of these cards? So you have to really work around all that mitigation of that luck of the deck draw. So it just works really well, and it's just really well put together, nicely kind of graphically designed and illustrated, all that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend this game highly. It's fantastic. If you like a good crunchy Euro, this is very, very different. This is not like any game that I've played before because it's got the deck building and the worker movement / placement stuff in there, and it works really well with the theme, like I said. So this is a giant breath of fresh air in terms of, you know, the essence style of a game. Highly recommend this. It works good I've only played it 2 and 4. I played it 4-player twice and 2-player once. I haven't played it 3-player, but it worked really well with 2 and worked awesome with 4. It does scale some different things, so you won't have like as much blocking with the buildings, but the cost goes up. So it's kind of a 6 1/2 dozen the other, and the cost goes down with 4 players, but you're gonna have more buildings in the way. So it works out. It works great with a 2 or 4-player game. I'm sure it works just as fine with 3. So I definitely recommend the game. It's a little bit to chew on at first, but once you get in, it's very easy. You move your guy, do the thing. Okay, get rid of this card. I've got 2 of these. Let's go. And then you keep going. You start to build out these cool special buildings of your own and all that kind of stuff. And there's interesting kind of combos that you can do. You can like go to a spot, it'll move you to another building, which will move you to another building, and you kind of try to set up little cool like combos like along the trail, which is really cool too. All right, so definitely highly recommend this game. Definitely one of the top games of the year for sure. Thanks.